What's up guys? In this video I want to take a look at Prisma in NestJS, and I sort of want to compare it to what I've previously used. I've used type ORM and I actually prefer Prisma over type ORM from what I've seen, and I'd like to share that with you today. And the two main reasons for that is migrations are a lot easier, and also you get bundled with a nice GUI so you can easily see your database in the browser. I'm in the project, and recall in the previous video we made a microservices gRPC NestJS application, although you don't really need to know much about that to follow along with this video, because we're just going to focus on the Prisma side of things, and it'll be in the next video that we'll focus on Dockerizing it and putting it in something like Kubernetes. So let's just take a look at Prisma itself here. So the first thing we want to do is we just want to go to the command line and run npm I, and we want to install Prisma, and we also want to install Prisma/client or @Prisma/client. So let's go ahead and just install those real quick. And then what we want to do is we just want to run a npx Prisma init just to initialize our Prisma database here. And what that does is it creates a Prisma folder in the root of our project. And if we open that up, we can see we got this schema here. Now by default, it connects with PostgreSQL. So we're going to do it with SQLite, because that's just going to be an in-memory file, and then we can avoid installing a database and any of that sort of stuff. But if you are interested in that, I have connected to Postgres in other videos, and you can follow along with that, or you could wait until the next video where we set it up with Postgres in our microservices project and Dockerize it, and perhaps use Kubernetes to wire it all up like that. But in this video, I just want to focus on Prisma, specifically for people that have used type ORM before and just need a quick guide to get up and running with Prisma, or just want to see what it's about. So basically what we can do here is, well, firstly, we need to connect to our database, and we see that we've got this .env file, and it automatically sets it up with PostgreSQL. So we just want to do something really basic here. We don't need to connect and have those credentials or anything for the time being. So we can just set this to file, colon, and then the place where we want it. So we can just call it /dev .db, for example, for our development database. And we can look at our Prisma schema here, and what we can note is we got the client, which is just the Prisma client.js, and then we got this data source, and then we just need to change this provider to SQLite, and then we can use our database URL. That's all well and good. And then what we're going to want to do is we want to create a table. So in these .prisma files, you can do that by saying model, and I'm going to have a to-do, and then this is where you sort of write your SQL syntax. So we can have an ID, which is going to be an integer, and we can have this @ID field here, and we can also have this annotation default here at default. So by default, it will do something. So we can say we want it to auto increment, and that way we don't have to insert the ID, it'll just auto increment for us. And then our to do, it has a description and whether or not it's done. So you can have description here like this, which is a string. Now, if you had an optional parameter, you could just put a question mark there. And I'm just going to have a Boolean is done here, and I'm going to set that to Boolean. And just to note, if I just open up the documentation here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of things that you could do, like optional string, like another type, for example, and then these annotations like unique, or if it's in a relationship, what you want to happen by default. So we use auto increment, but if you had a boolean, you could set it to false, for example, updated at. So all the things you would expect from a relational database. So, and then there's also this is what we used here to connect with SQLite. If you're using any other database, you can just come to the Prisma documentation and wire that up. But again, I've done Postgres in other videos with TypeORM, and I'll do Postgres with Prisma in the next video. They're both pretty much the same thing. So basically, after you create a schema, this is where you know, the main area where Prisma shines over TypeORM is it's just super easy to make your migrations. Whereas in TypeORM, I have a video on migrations 0.3 onwards, particularly in like a microservice based architecture, and it's a little tricky to set up. So I think Prisma just makes things a little easier here. So to make that migration and actually create the table in the database and all that sort of stuff, we can run this command npx prisma migrate, and then we can just call whatever it's going to be. So we got our dev database, so let's just say dev and then we can give it a name. So this is going to be a to-do. This could be anything you want it to be, and we'll see what this does after we do the migration. But you can see it's created the dev.db file for us here, and it's gone ahead and done that migration there. So in this migrations folder here, you see that message we had, it has the date. So for me, it's the 10th of October. Oh, sorry, it's the 22nd of October. 2023, and there's a bit of a timestamp there, and then there's also this annotation for what I've called it, and that'll help you keep track of things without having to do any configuration or anything by yourself. So we can see that that's set up for us. So with that set up for us, let's just go ahead and create a model, and let's just recall what we're building here. So in our apps, we had our API gateway, and then we had our to-do microservice. So I will say that you could create a like a shared area, a shared library, and probably you would do that in a real project. And if you want to know how to do that, I've got a video in my microservices video with NestJS and RabbitMQ, which shows you how to do that. But the idea would be like, if you're connecting to the database, you want like to abstract that, and then you can connect to it from a shared library. But since I've only got an API gateway and a to-do library microservice, I'm just going to put the stuff in the to-do microservice itself related to the database. So basically what we're going to do here is in this source file folder here in to-do, I'm just going to create a model, and I'm just going to call this to-do, and this is going to be the to-do model. And just to have a quick look at what we're doing, basically in our API gateway, we had our app controller. So you hit the localhost endpoint, and we have both a to-do get and post requests. So that's what we'll implement with Prisma today. So basically this will call our microservice. It goes to the to-do controller. We're using gRPC, calls that, and then it offloads the work from the API gateway to this microservice here. So it's going to do that. So we just want to make some adjustments to this, because right now, if you look at our to-do service, we can see that we've hard coded an array in memory. So we want to make this into a database. So we just need to make some adjustments. And since we've now created our Prisma, and by the way, the second main benefit is the GUI. Now I'm not sure if it would show us much now because we haven't really done much, but you can run npx Prisma Studio, and we can already see that it shows us our database. So we just got this to-do model here. There's nothing in it, but you can see it as if it was like a relational database like MySQL or Postgres, or whatever other GUIs you use to view your database. But there's nothing in it at the moment. But it's pretty handy that just comes bundled with it without needing to set anything up or anything like that. So basically, and I might just cancel that for now. Basically, we need to create a model, a TypeScript model that's going to represent what that database is going to look like. So let's just go ahead and do that. So we've got this to-do model here, and this of course needs to be a to-do model. So let's say to-do model.ts here. So what we want to do is we just want to export a class, and we'll just call it to-do. But then we want to implement our Prisma database. So we've made the migration. So Prisma is now aware that we have a to-do table. So we can just go ahead and insert Prisma, and it's going to have these sort of magic methods, you can call them, or magic implementations, the same way any ORM works. So we can see that we got all these things here. So to-do is the name of the table that we've created. So if we want to make a post request, for example, which is what we need our to-do model for, because the GET request, we don't need a model for that. So we can just use the create input. We can implement that. And then we can just have an ID, which will be a number. So the same as a regular class, a description, which is a string, and is done, which is going to be a Boolean here. So we've made our model. So what we need to do is we actually need to have a Prisma service. And this is going to allow us to use the Prisma client and actually, connect to the database and actually be able to make SQL queries, or that's what's happening, but under the hood. But we're using an ORM, so it sort of abstracts it away from us. But we just need a way to be able to connect that. So we can just create a Prisma service here. So prisma.service.ts. So we're going to export a class, and we'll just call it Prisma service. So we don't want that. Actually, we do want that. We want Prisma client. So if we just export the class Prisma service, which extends the Prisma client, but then this can implement the onModule init, because when the class is created, or when the project's sort of created and running, we want to connect to the database. So basically we can just have this async method here. So I'm going to call it onModule init, and that's nothing that I've created, that's just out of the box. So we've got this onModule init method here, which is asynchronous, and then we can just connect to the database. And then we just need to be able to inject this and call this from within our services. We can get the injectable from NestJS and annotate our class with that. And then that should suffice. So one thing that we just need to remember to do is we just need to, in our to-do module, we just need to remember to import that as a provider. So this is the Prisma service, which we've just gone ahead and got. So we got the Prisma service, and we've declared that in the module. Now what we can do is we can go to our to-do service. We can delete this hard-coded stuff that I used to demonstrate gRPC in the previous video with just some in-memory stuff. So of course I'm going to need to make some adjustments, and I might just close that terminal for the time being. So in our to-do service, we want to have a constructor, and in our constructor we want to inject the Prisma service that we just created. So Prisma service is of the type Prisma service. And now that we've injected that, we can make use of that. So post and get, they're going to be asynchronous now. So I am going to have async here and async here. And this is now going to be a promise. I might just copy that here and have this promise here. Now we can, if we want to create something rather than doing this sort of thing we're doing here, we can just go ahead and we can just say, okay, we can just return this .prisma service .to-do, because to-do, we've made the migration, it's aware of the table. Our Prisma service has the IntelliSense for that. And then this is where you have all your methods. So, you know, you got create, delete, find first, find many, update, update many. So all these magic methods you're familiar with ORMs in general, and if you're not familiar with ORMs in general, there's just this abstraction layer over the top of your SQL, which provides you with interfaces to easily make changes to your database independent of the particular data layer that you're using or database that you're using. So we can just go ahead and for this one, what is this? Post. We can just go ahead and call create. And then we can just go ahead and pass in an object. And it likes to use data as the key. And then we need a to-do. So we have the to-do, or we have this post to-do DTO. So let's just go ahead and paste that in there like that. And then for the get to-dos, we can use the Prisma service for returning this. I just want to get this. So this Prisma service to do create, this is going to give back, I presume, a to do, but of the type, the model that you get. So I'm going to just call this to do, which will be a constant variable here. However, this to do is not this to do here. So that's a little bit confusing, but this to do here, this is coming from the to do model here. So basically I'm just going to say that this is I to do, or is it as I to do, to be able to distinguish between the to-do from the gRPC proto and the interface that we've got here. So I want to return something of the form of the proto, which looks like this here. So I'm just going to return that. However, this will be what we get back here. So we got the ID, we got the to-do description, and then we got the to-do dot is done. And then these should be commas instead. And we can just go ahead and we can save that there. So of course we're going to need to await for this to be able to get that. And then we want to uncomment this here. And then that should fix that error up there. And then we can do the same thing for our get request. So our get request should look like of the form this here. But I just need to adjust the format here. So I'm going to have a const to do of the type I to do. And we're going to need to await this Prisma service find many. And then basically what we'll do, and actually this is an array of to-dos. So I'll call this to-dos. And then I'll have basically I'll have here the to-dos, and then we'll map through each to-do, and then for each to-do, what we'll do is we'll return an object where we have something like this here. Now, if you sort of planned ahead of time, you probably could have got the models to be in alignment. However, I had a couple of weeks before this, where I did gRPC a couple of weeks ago and then sort of forgot about it. And then now I'm doing this here. So thank you for bearing with me through this here. So I'll just change this to T here and save that. Okay, so now our to-do service has been created, and we've just done a bit of a adapting of the to-do data. So we've converted the to-dos from Prisma into the format that gRPC will like. So now we can come back over to our controller here. And I might just undo any changes here. So now if we come to our controller, we can just go ahead and add the keyword await here, which means we will need to make our function asynchronous. So we can use that because we need to await for the promise to be resolved. And this will return a promise, although we'll just use type inference in this circumstance here to be able to get that. And then we can just go ahead and remove these imports here. Go ahead and save it. And now with that, we should be able to run our project. So if we open up two terminals, we can run a npm run start dev to do. And we can run a npm run start dev API. And then that should get our project up and running. Now, if I go over into Postman here and I make a GET request, we see that we get nothing back here. If I make a post request here, so we can get rid of this ID. Oh, that's the response from before. If I make a post here, we see that we get back an ID of 1, hi, and is done. And then we try and get something. We can see that we've got our object with the to-dos as an array. And then let's just post another one here. So hi 2, I run this. And then we can see that that runs well there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a look at that by running the command that I ran before, which was the npx Prisma Studio. and we can see this here, and we can see that we've got 2 rows for our to-dos. And if we click on that, we can see that we've got the data there in the database. So all in all, Prisma, I find everything just runs quite smoothly. And yeah, I'll probably start using it in projects moving forward. So let me know what you guys think of this Prisma ORM versus Type ORM or any other ORMs, and if it's something you like or not. In the next video, I'm going to Dockerize this gRPC application, and I might try and set it up with Kubernetes on my local environment here, just to sort of show how that works. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.